All right, so I want to ask you, like, just for your impressions, well, what did you find for episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, was, say, the pros for you, like the good stuff?
Ooh, pros. Oh, definitely got to give a nod to the musical score again. Again, John Williams just hit the mark. Um, Special effects was really well done. Lighting was good. Action sequences were good. I'm struggling to go any further than that at the moment.
I was about to say the same thing. I'm like, surely there must be more.
There could have been, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like the action was there, the science fiction was there, the musical score matched, it was there. It had all the feeling of a Star Wars movie, and that's pretty much where it ended for me.
That's the thing as well. Like, I the whole movie was about closure, and I'm satisfied that I walked away not feeling guilty for being a Star Wars fan. Like when I walked out of The Last Jedi, I felt that. But yeah, it felt like a Star Wars film, and then when I walked out of this one, it is essentially a Star Wars film. So, I mean, there were other pros that I have here as well that maybe you may have looked over. I'll throw them out to you. Like for example, and actually for example, like Han Solo's return.
It was all right.
In a sense, yeah, if you look deep into it, but it was kind of good to see him. But I just thought that if he was supposed to be a memory, why is his hair grown and why does he look older? Shouldn't they have made him like as close as to what episode 7 in what he looked like? I just don't understand how memories grow hair.
Unless in like a sense, like because it was his own memory, he might have just had this image of what Han would have looked like a little bit older.
I could be nitpicking though.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the other ones that I thought were pretty cool was a cameo from Nien from Return of the Jedi. He was that alien that was co-piloting the Falcon in Return of the Jedi. You remember that alien?
I remember that guy. Yep.
So it was nice to see him. Wedge Antilles cameo in the Falcon.
No, I missed him. I'll have to keep an eye out on another viewing, I guess.
It's a legit like blink and you miss it. I think he just goes nice shot, Lando, and then they just because he's in one of the gunner cockpits, and I'm just like, that was really quick.
Probably should have given him a little bit more than that, I guess.
I know, like he was, and the thing is that to make him more recognizable, they put him in his X-wing suit or his flight suit. I'm like, does he really need a flight suit if he's going to be a gunner for the Falcon?
I mean, even saying that, why put him in the Falcon and not an X-wing?
Yeah, exactly right.
Literally, like if you've got to put Wedge Antilles in, I mean, you could have literally had the Falcon come in, do his little entry, and then have Wedge drop in the front, and then literally say all wings on me, and boom, there you go.
There you go. The other thing I sort of liked, but again I thought it was a bit of a double-handed sort of thing, was the Luke and Leia young flashback training.
That was some nice closure. Like for me, that gave a bit more depth to their relationship and kind of wrapped up things a little bit with Leia's current character and how she got to where she is. So that I did enjoy.
The thing is that the reason why I say it's double-handed is because at the same time, like Luke in that particular scene loses again to a whammon.
Got to chuck the double handed in there, I guess.
You gotta. Well, no, you don't gotta. But I'm just like, couldn't have just been ended at a stalemate or something. But no, SJW whammon. The
Well,
other
I mean,
thing, the other thing that I liked was seeing Red 5 again, rise from the swamp, and then Luke Skywalker's return as a Force ghost. That was kind of good.
yeah, and the guy in the cinema behind us definitely enjoyed that.
Oh, the guy that was on his own.
He was just like, "Woo!" It's just like, okay, man, calm down.
Oh yeah, I remember him. He was the one that like walked out and he was like talking to himself. I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? At least he liked it.
Yeah, someone had to.
was seeing Red 5 again, Rise from the Swamp, and then Luke Skywalker's return as a Force Ghost. Apparently we had, and this is, I haven't checked the spoilers, that was kind of good. Full names because I
Yeah, and
kind
the
of
guy
just.
in the cinema behind us
But
definitely
what I
enjoyed
got
that.
was a the guy that was on his own, Anakin
Yeah,
Skywalker,
he was just
Alec
like,
Guinness,
"Woo!" It's just like,
but
okay,
there's a
man,
few
calm
others.
down.
I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah,
guys
I
looked
remember
into
him.
that
He
for
was the one
yourself.
that like walked out and he was like talking to himself.
I was
I
like,
was looking into it,
bro,
but I couldn't remember
what are
all
you
of them. It
doing?
was like when he
definitely
first was
sure.
there, I was like, "Whoa, shit! I guess she's dead then."
At least he liked it.
Yeah, someone had
Yeah,
to.
that was surprising too. So I'm just like, yeah, what happened to her? Unless she's again kind of just survived and because I haven't seen Rebels and I know a lot happens in Rebels. And this is I haven't checked the spoilers.
A lot does, yes, and I recently wrapped that up about a week and a bit ago, so I won't go into too much spoiler territory, but there is a big gap between the end of Rebels and where Rise of Skywalker takes off.
Like how big a gap?
Rebels basically ends. They don't give an exact time frame, but sometime after the Battle of Endor.
That's a long time. Okay.
Yeah, big gap.
And that's kind of it. I mean, I don't have any other sort of other good things to really say about it. I probably will have to agree with you with the music and even seeing John Williams as well. He had a bit of a cameo there. I think he was in the bar or something with a monocle.
Gotta admit, he looks good with a monocle.
Yeah, it was nice to see him there, just sort of in that sort of moment because I don't think he had any other cameos. And then what else did you say? The music, the action scenes were pretty cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna move to the cons.
I will give one minor shout out, and you're gonna hate me for it, but Babu Freak gave me life.
He was all right. I don't see what the big like hoopla about him is, but I mean, small packages, big results. So I can understand why people are losing their mind over him. It's like Baby Yoda for the Mandalorian.
Pretty much, but it's just like the tiny thing, fixing big things, barely speaks a lick of English, and yet you somehow just relate to it.
Well, that was one of the cons that I was going to say. Where is it here? Because I got a massive fucking list here. One of the cons was, or even it could be as a pro, where everybody, well, it coincides with everybody knowing Chewie's language. Everyone knows how to speak Wookiee now, right? Where it was supposed to be exclusively between Han and Chewie. Like, Luke didn't know. Leia definitely didn't know. Um, but now everybody speaks it. And then when they go to the planet, which is Kijimi, then they just don't know what Babu Frick is saying. They have to have that new character. What's her name? The Kerry Russell character, the Poe Dameron love interest.
Poe Dameron love interest, yet that still threw me off. That kind of got thrown in there, but yeah,
I forgot her name.
again, oh man, mind blowing.
I gotta find it actually. Now I'm curious.
It will haunt us if we don't confirm this.
Well, I mean, hold on. I'm gonna find it now. Hold on.
What are you just saying that? Like, that's probably another con for me, is like throwing in another Poe Cameron love interest out of nowhere.
Well, it didn't really make sense, like, but it was nice for a little bit of a change. But she was just kind of thrown in there just to sort of, um, I don't know, slow the pace of the movie because the movie moved really quickly, and that's definitely one of my cons as well. It moved really quickly.
Like a lightspeed jump.
Oh, geez, not even. Actually, yeah, actually, that also coincides with one of my cons, which is the hyperspeed skipping. You remember?
Yes, it was literally like the first, what was it, first 10, 15 minutes, and we just got that thrown in our face, and it's like, that's a thing you can do.
Like, I didn't even know they could hyperspeed skip. Like, are you for real?
There's just so many like negatives towards that they kind of touched on how dangerous it was when they got back, but at the same time, when you're watching it happen, you're just like, somebody has to die at some point. Not in these wide gaps of like 3 to 4 skips and then the TIE fighter dies, 3 or 4 skips, TIE fighter dies. It's like, no, it seems a lot more dangerous than that. And secondly, how are the TIE fighters still with them at each jump?
That's the part I don't know. And I just found out that Kerry Russell's character was Zori Bliss was her name. So, but going back to the hyperspeed skipping, yeah, I don't know how that worked. I mean, it was kind of cool, but then it kind of reminded me of back in episode 7 where Han could do hyperspeed from a stationary point of view. It's not stationary point of view, from a stationary position with the Falcon.
And also inside of another ship
Inside of another ship, yeah.
without destroying said ship. And then one episode later, hyperjump destroys the
Hyper,
fleet.
yeah, hyperspeed skipping. That was it was kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, okay, I may be nitpicking about if it makes any sense or not, but it was just, I don't know. It's like the Holdo maneuver, man. It's just fucking weird.
Oh, your face palm when they said that in Rise of Skywalker could not have been any harder.
Well, because the thing is like, it's first of all, he's J.J. Abrams is addressing or pretty much retconning everything that the Last Jedi was practically. And with the Holdo maneuver, it's almost like a double slap in the face. So what it is he's saying, okay, the Holdo maneuver is a once in a million thing. But at the same time, he's also appeasing the SJW and Whammon audiences by actually making Holdo a martyr for destroying most of the fleet back then.
It was kind of like again, like a double slap.
Oh, for sure, yeah, it was a double slap. Like there was a positive and a negative to it, but I'm just like, okay, so it gives them when you have that sort of shitty explanation, it gives them, what happens at the end, and we'll talk about it in a second. But um,
Mm.
just running down my list here, I think the the one thing that and again, I don't know why it's a staple of J.J. Abrams. I don't know why, but when they came back and the banter between them, this is again another double slap where you see the trilogy of heroes, the three heroes, the trinity of heroes. Sorry, um, Ray, Finn, and Poe. They're all arguing about the hyperdrive skipping when they get back, and it's just really quick talking, as well as they're arguing. Like the interaction at first, it's really weird and disjointed, but it's for some reason a staple of J.J. Abrams, like really talking really quickly, and then like at the same time it gives off a little bit of a, I don't know, like it gives a bit of character development to them. But I'm just like, because obviously between the Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker, there was a time there had to be a massive time lapse, like at least maybe a couple of years or something.
Yeah, but even saying that, like that scene to me, like that's the time and the place that you need to kind of slow down, build up a bit of character development, build up a bit of backstory, because yeah, you've got a big gap between 8 and 9 where you need to fill a bit of gap. Those times and those moments are where you do it. You don't just jump into an argument, couple of ramblings, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to do this now.
Which is essentially what was like the whole movie. It's like, yeah, not exactly like there was quick talking, but it was more like, okay, we just got to do this. Again, I don't think there was really much character development. Um, Maybe that's just me. Now that I think about it, I mean, I, I, I don't know if. My main point is that that particular thing is a staple of J.J. Abrams. Like he likes to have people talk really quickly for some stupid reason, and then it's like trying to be funny, and I'm like, no, it's like it just falls flat. And then, which brings me to the comedy in the movie. Again, like
Wait,
the
the
force.
comedy?
That's the thing. There was a couple of bits that was comedy, and like I think I only laughed at one bit, but mainly it was like episode seven's comedy. It's like, yeah, there was a couple sprinkled in, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not comedy, man. Like Star Wars is not comedy, and if there was, it was really dark humor, like really, really dark humor.
And not even like just dark, like it was small snippets. Like you take A New Hope. the little first little bit of comedy that comes to mind is the little board game between Chewbacca and R2D2, and they're sitting there talking about what happens when a Wookiee loses, and 3PO just looks at you and goes, "I suggest you let the Wookiee win." And then you see Chewbacca put his hands behind his head, like, "That's right, bitch." Like little things like that is what serves it really nicely.
And then, interestingly enough, now that you say that, they had that particular scene with Poe and Finn versing Chewbacca in that game, and then they just conceded that he was cheating, and I'm like, why? Why would he cheat? It's fucking Chewbacca, dude. He knows how to play that game, inside and out, and he just like he goes up against everybody. Like, but with R2D2, obviously up against a droid, you can't really almost like beat a droid.
No, exactly right, and that's why in Episode 4 it worked well, but not in Rise of Skywalker. And like for the modern sequels, like the comedy scene that works well and one that comes to mind is that scene in Episode 7 when they're trying to fix the Millennium Falcon, when they're trying to get off Jakku, and he sits there and he's begging BB-8 not to reveal who he is and just go along with it, and they share that small little thumbs up to each other. It's like that's it. That's all you need. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
Just
I
do
totally
that, move
agree.
on.
It's a subtle, yeah, it's not even subtle, but it's like that kind of comedy is okay. But I still, the other one, if I had to match it with A New Hope, the one that you mentioned was in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, where they're on their way to the Sarlacc pit, and Han is like, it's like, instead of seeing a really dark blur, now I see a really light blur. And then Luke is just like, something like, "Oh, there's nothing much to see. Just leave it to me to handle things." Um, something conveniently, and then Han is like, "Yeah, but you're gonna conveniently die here. Like, don't forget about that." And I'm just like, um, yeah, it definitely wasn't a laugh out loud moment. It was kind of comedic, but at the same time, just felt really real in a sense. Like Han in that particular moment, because he's blind and he uses, obviously, we got to use our eyes. He's vulnerable, and when he has a young one like Skywalker or Luke, not all, but it is Luke Skywalker saying, coming in brimming with this arrogancy and confidence that he's going to get them out. Like, you think that the young one, he it's kind of like the old brother younger brother relationship, right? And so he just has a little bit of angst, a little bit of anxiety that he's probably not going to make it out. But I like that because it was that particular dialogue between Luke and Han was very real. I felt, and morbid in a sense, but it was dark humor.
Yeah, it's just something that you can kind of like. You don't laugh, but you just get that little bit of smile on the side of your corner, like, yeah, they're gonna die, but this is great. This is a nice scene, and then you move on.
Mm. Okay, so there's another point that I have here. Force ghosts. When can they catch things?
But that's the thing, like, where, like,
That
I
pissed
don't
me
think that,
off.
like, yeah, like it's supposed to be that like they're not meant to interfere. Like they're part of the force. They're there for guidance.
They're a
There for
ghost.
learning. They're ghosts. Like, huh?
See, I never liked that part in the last Jedi where Yoda just goes, "Oh, I'm good." He wants to burn the Jedi texts, whatever of the wills, right? The book of the wills, and then he just brings down lightning.
See, I didn't find that one too hard to swallow because that was just really him manipulating the environment. Which,
But Force ghosts
when I
can't
think
do
about
that.
force, well, that's the thing. Like they are part of the force. Like they're part of it. Like they become one with it, which allows them this new wealth of knowledge, this new sense of power. Like every time you think about it, when Obi-Wan let Vader kill him, he's like, "Strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could imagine." So it's not beyond belief that they do have this unwielding power and ability, but to me, there's a difference between striking down a tree in teaching a younger one a lesson in that situation. Yoda showing Luke, forget that shit, move on, man. We don't need that. Teach them our mistakes. Don't teach them what we've done great. But physically catching a lightsaber, getting thrown into a burning TIE fighter is a little bit far fetched to me.
Yeah, because she's gone back to Octo. She wants to go into exile, and she wants to just be away from everything. And then he catches a lightsaber, and he goes on that spiel of, that's a Jedi's weapon, blah blah blah. Treat it with respect. I'm just like, the moment that I heard that line, I'm just like, oh, that's a massive slap to ruin. I mean, Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, and him saying that, like, it would have been better if he just bloody force pushed it back at her.
Or if he just didn't die at all. Like I mean, that's a totally different discussion that I want to do on another I don't know, another discussion. But right now, it's just like, should he have been a Force ghost in I don't know. And at the same time as well, the only time that I can explain why they can't interfere, um, where how you were just talking about the lightning, and I'm thinking, well, then Yoda should just lightning the Emperor or lightning whatever. Is the line back in episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, where Ben Obi-Wan is begging Luke not to go to Bespin City, right, to save his friends, and he goes, "If you go, I cannot interfere." We never got. I remember, and I still to this day, which I still find fine. You never get an explanation of why he cannot interfere. But then I think to myself, okay, it's again Jedi teachings, Jedi sort of like, you'll find out. Like, I've already told you, but I'm not going to give you a reason. But you'll find out the hard way.
Yeah, like when I think about that scene where he says, don't go to Bessemer City because I can't intervene. Like to me, that goes back to the previous episode when like Luke's in the trench in the Death Star and trying to use the guidance system, and you hear Obi-Wan telling him, trust your instincts, trust the Force. Like, was that Luke's shot that got in, or was that Obi-Wan actually interfering and actually guiding them in?
That is such a good point. Or was it Luke's tapping into the Force that enabled those proton torpedoes to hit its mark at the exact part of the trench? So
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that might have been Obi-Wan interfering too much, and off camera in different universe away from what we see, Obi-Wan might have got a bit of a Jedi slap on the wrist, being like, "That's a no, you should have done that. Bad Obi-Wan, bad Obi-Wan, don't do it."
bad Ben, bad Ben. Okay, so that's a really good point. Which again can be debated for whatever, because I actually haven't heard of that. So that's a really interesting point. Um, my next point here is too much forced soliloquies. Now, what I mean by that is one example is Poe Dameron's reaction to the galaxy responding with the show of the armada of ships that come in later, when he's like, "Oh, guys, I think it's over and we're gonna die," and then all of a sudden, fucking Lando comes in and he's just like, not too late, blah blah blah," and then it's just that soliloquy of just too much explanation of his feelings and whatever. It actually sounds really anime, like really anime, and I'm like, you don't need to say that for Western audiences. Just leave that to anime, where just say like it's done, we're gone, forget it. Because sometimes I think silence works a lot better than using a lot of words.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes silence can be the most powerful weapon in movies. Like, I remember a few years ago, I watched someone who completely went through Aragon and took out all the dragon's voice and just used facial expressions and sounds, and it dramatically changed everything. And again, it's something that would have worked with Poe, especially somehow he's gone from this reckless pilot in the previous episodes to this more kind of nervous, anxious, am I the right kind of leader kind of guy.
Oh, exactly. Just the shifts in, it's just the weirdest freaking shifts in character. Oh god. My other point next then for from Poe is for Ray. Actually, I'll return back to Poe in a second, but with Ray's fighting style, like in most of her lightsaber duels, I am sick to fucking death with the underhanded lightsaber technique. It just looks fucking dumb. You know how they do the underhanded and the blade is pointing to the ground, but they you know what I mean?
Yeah, they kind of come from the bottom up, so it's like a lower guard to sort of like a mid strike, but it doesn't really
Uh,
move from there.
And her fighting style initially is just weird. Like it's one-handed, just thrashing about like a kid. It just feels unrefined. It looks stupid, and it actually feels amateurish. And with some of the fights or some of the parts that I could see in the choreography of the fight, I could see Kylo Ren could have easily punctured her with the lightsaber many times.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I've looked into a couple of like different reviews for like the fight scenes, and yeah, some points like they make a point about it being a little bit more raw and a bit more realistic, that they're not so choreographed and not so fluid and functioning, but there gets to a point where it goes from being over choreographed to just looking like 2 3 year olds who are fighting over the last toy with sticks.
Yes, I've actually read something similar.
And it's just like, you need a little bit of refining in there, especially considering the gap you've got. Then the fact that, in episode 8, Kylo was literally beaten down verbally by Snoke by saying, you got beaten by a girl who's never held a lightsaber before. So you think between that verbal beatdown to fighting there, that, either of them would have had a bit more of a refined style.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I know Ben. I think he was. Sorry, not Ben. That's his light side name. Kylo Ren. Would have had his teachings from Snoke, or now the Emperor, which we haven't even gotten to yet. Ugh, which I will get to. Ugh. Um, but from what I gathered, I believe Ben was supposed to. Sorry, Kylo Ren was supposed to be the more refined fighter, and obviously he learned from the Jedi Temple before turning into Kylo Ren as well.
Well, that's even just the thing, like the start of the film, even then, his lightsaber form in that little snippet of battle looked a hell of a lot more refined to what it was. Like, he was taking advantage of his enemy's body positions, whoever they were. They never gave a name, but, he was much better at, like, fluiding. He was getting through them. He used their bodies to get to another person. He used one as a shield. Like, his technique looked fantastic at the start, and then it's like, now I'm going to be beat with a stick. Here you go, guys. Don't know what happened.
Speaking of that scene, do you know that that was actually he was on Mustafar?
That was Mustafa.
Yeah,
Did not come across Mustafa.
yeah. I thought it was Mustafar the first time I saw it. I'm just like, wait, that's Red Planet, Mustafar, and then in the background you can actually see the ruins of Darth Vader's castle.
Oh, there we go. I spent way too much time focusing on Kylo than the actual backgrounds. There we go. I learned something.
Well, I thought it was Mustafar, and then I saw like the ruins in the background. I'm like, huh. And then I put it in the back of my mind, and then I thought, all right, once I finish the movie, I'll just confirm that. And then I got that confirmed. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool that he had to go all the way down there to get a Sith Wayfinder.
Well, there you go. Another lost moment for them to create some sort of universe.
Hmm. The other fighting style that I found was a little weird was Poe Dameron's gunfighting style. His stance with the double hand and whatnot on the blaster felt too modern, tactically speaking. Um, I don't know how good or how into sort of tactical sort of stuff that you look into in terms of like SWAT and whatever. But for me, if Poe Dameron was supposed to be like Han Solo, um, it would be the one-handed shooting. But I believe that particular stance was relegated to Finn. Finn always does a lot of one-handed shooting if he's got a blaster in his hand. If it's a blaster rifle, then that's a different story. Of course, it's double-handed. But that's how I felt for his fighting style was just really strange. It was a bit too modern.
And it looked very stiff on camera as well, which is kind of took away from the actual enjoyment of it.
That's the thing, though. That particular stance is supposed to be stiff because obviously, whatever gun that you're handling to stop the recoil, blah blah blah. So it's not that iconic one, that stance where Han Solo is, he shoots Vader when he thinks he's going to dinner with Lando, and he shoots Vader the moment that he sees him, hand sort of flailing in the back, well, not flailing, but sort of giving him balance, and it's the one-handed blaster shot that he was just shooting him with, or the same stance that he did when he was trying to get into the station during the Endor fight, and he's busy shooting stormtroopers like point blank in the face, but again, one-handed shot. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so jumping to Ray again. So the Force healing. She can heal lightsaber wounds, animal wounds, um, and whatnot. So
Honestly, I was actually very happy to finally actually see that in films because in video games, in books, it's always been mentioned. But for me, actually finally seeing it in the movie verse, that for me was welcomed. I actually did enjoy seeing that. But at the same time, some of it, as it got later onto the film, kind of became okay, so what the fuck, do people just not die?
that's the thing. It's like nobody's truly gone. Well, okay, if you can force heal, then I mean, I wish they could have done maybe like a 5 second scene or something where they could show that she had learned that from the Jedi texts that she had stolen from Luke, essentially. Because I believe that the journey of the Book of the Will, sorry, and all those Jedi texts do talk about Force healing. Even Wikipedia confirms that as well online. So WOOKIEPEDIA, the Wikipedia, um, even confirms that. So I would have liked them to have seen that, but a lot of people that I know were just like, how? Like, now she knows how to force heal. It's like every movie she's progressed has had no no repercussions, no struggles, no nothing. So that's something that I want to save at the very end after all these bits that I have, which is called the Mary Sue argument. I'll save that later. But the force healing thing for me, like it was just yeah, it felt a little too convenient.
I will agree in the fact that like it should have been introduced, like maybe at the start when she said, she's going to go through the gauntlet or the running thing at the start. Um, and actually, maybe had a scene where she maybe cut herself on a branch or sprained her ankle and could have showed her literally sitting down with one of the books and opening it up and then reading through it and then actually practicing, failing a little bit. And then later on in the film, that's where she perfects it when she realizes. But yeah, a bit of failing and learning in between would have been nice.
Like another point, just to actually continue from that is with that in mind, because of the breakneck speed that this movie went at, this movie felt like with a couple of tweaks here and there, a couple of changes, it should have been episode 8. It should not have been episode 9.
Yeah, I can agree with that one actually because it could expand it out and actually been a lot longer and had a lot more stories in between instead of just being like, hey, here's this, back to the action. Hey, here's this, back to the action. Hey, here's this, back to the action.
That's pretty much it. Like somebody I remember watching their video said that it moves at a breakneck speed, but it also slows down like in places like completely halts. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think the first big halt for me probably came with when the Rainbow appeared. Like that scene just kind of really just slammed the brakes on and was just died in the water.
Okay, so what are your feelings that Ray is now a Palpatine?
Can I have my money back?
Indulge me. Like tell me your feelings on that one.
It didn't deliver. Like it was just like literally just felt like you're the kid in line at school getting the jelly cup and you get to the end of the line and all that's left is lime and you're just like, oh, okay, but it's not what I wanted. I think the are we going to move into Palpatine like through this? Because like kind of for me the whole Ray being a Palpatine and Palpatine kind of really blends into like my big disliking of the film.
Oh, for sure, yeah, by all means, lead the way.
All right, so part that really bugged me, like that would have led to the whole Ray being a Palpatine, would have led up nicely if there was any sort of development at all in the first one, in the second, so in episode 7, in episode 8, if there was any sort of like little Easter eggs, like little carrots that kind of paved the way, that kind of got you thinking, oh, maybe is she? But no, they decided to go with the whole drop that is like you're a nobody, like doesn't really matter. Your parents were crap, they were gamblers, they left you. And then it's like, hey, Palpatine's alive. He's been behind everything. He's the big bad guy. And by the way, he's your grandfather. How do you like that, kiddo? And it's just, it, you watched it, you're just like, okay, but why? Like, it had zero impact. Like, she could have been freaking a Kenobi and it would have had more of an impact than that.
And yeah, you have to also mention that you strayed away from all of like the Disney announcements and the trailers and the one spots, right?
Yeah, I literally went in blind. I no trailers, didn't even look at the casting call, didn't look at IMDb, didn't look at any storyboards, no pre-interviews, nothing related to Star Wars. I went into this movie completely blind, and I still just kind of went, eh.
Yeah, whereas I saw a few of the excuse me, the trailers and the TV spots and I was just like, yeah, it was coming, but I didn't like that reveal. Like I just didn't expect that reveal was going to be like that particular scene where yeah, she's fighting for the ship that has Chewie on it because Chewie gets captured and it looks as if that Chewie is about to be transported off to the First Order and then she just was trying to pull it back down, which I thought was another Mary Sue moment in itself because I'm just like, wait, so she's that strong that she's pulling down a moving ship that's about to go to outer space, probably at full blast, or maybe not, who gives a shit, and she was going to pull it down.
And as I mentioned, pull it down without actually ripping it.
Yeah.
Key point here.
And then she fights up against Kylo Ren because she defeated him in a weird lightsaber somersault, running 100-meter dash thing. Again, another slow motion sort of weird moment, but it was kind of cool. But I'm just like, that's add another notch to Ray's belt that she's on her own like that. And then it's like, yeah, and then she was fighting with him using the Force, and then all of a sudden lightning comes out of her fingers, and I was just like, oh man, I almost walked out of the theater.
Well, that's the thing though, like if that was gonna be the nod that she was a Palpatine, it's a pretty crappy one because he's not the only one in this movie universe or even any universe of Star Wars that's used Force lightning. It's a Force ability that you learn. It's not a heritage thing. It's not like, oh, my daddy's Palpatine. Look what I can do.
Now, more on him probably in a couple of seconds, because there's again another point that I was jumping towards at the very end where the kiss. That was so unnecessary, dude. It completely undermines Rey's own anger and emotion from episode 7. Like, she was crying about Han dying. She was crying about Finn copping a lightsaber to the spine. And then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, I've revived you with Force Heal. Pucker up, buddy. Give me your lips.
Yeah, I'm just not even going to touch that.
But could that be
I,
argued? People are telling me, or I can hear now, people are be like, no, but she wasn't kissing Kylo Ren. She was kissing Ben Skywalker. I don't give a shit.
it literally goes against everything. Like, what now is every movie where a bad guy and a good guy is a male and female, or male, female? Who gives a damn? Bad guy and good guy just gonna make up and kiss? Like, is that the universe we're setting up? No, you're enemies. You I don't know. That just to me it felt like the world's worst Romeo and Juliet scene.
Not even. I wouldn't even want to like compare it to Romeo and Juliet. It was just so unnecessary. I was like looking at them. I'm like, don't, just don't. And then when they did, I'm like, uh.
Let's see that. Like my comparison to Romeo and Juliet is that like she's dead, but then
Oh, the
she's
reviving.
alive, but then he's dead. So it's like kind of like the moment where like they thought, Romeo Juliet was dead, but she actually wasn't. It was the paralysis poison, and then he takes the poison as she wakes up, and it's like, oh my god, no, kiss, both die, and it's just
And
like,
then she
oh, you know what?
refuses to, or she doesn't give her force back to him to bring him back to life, and he just fucking dies, and then just disappears. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, literally ultimate cock block.
Ultimate. and then he just disappears and goes into the Force probably. But we don't even see him after that. He doesn't even join Luke or Leia. He just fucking just disappears. His redemption arc over. The last of the Skywalkers, or half Skywalker, half Solo, is dead.
Yeah, and no family portrait at the end for you, buddy.
No, no.
He's now literally the photo in the family household that gets put face down at Christmas time when the rest of the family comes over.
Like, I honestly thought he was supposed to be standing with Luke and Leia. But now I've got a feeling they're going to do like a George Lucas, and when the DVD comes, the Blu-ray comes out, they'll probably like put him in. Like, you remember how they changed the old George Lucas changed old Anakin Skywalker to Hayden Christensen Anakin Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, the changed
Yeah.
movies.
My Blu-ray disc is somewhere down the street, and when I tossed it, I can't remember where it ended up.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that was just an unnecessary change. Like, okay, cool, Hayden Christensen played Anakin Skywalker, but don't replace that shit. Like, that's what I knew to be Anakin. That's what he looked like. Get out of my disc. Get out of my movie. Get out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
Into the
Um,
sandpit.
pretty much. Honestly, to go back to what you were saying, Palpatine making a return, I felt it was an absolute trash inclusion. Like, it's trash. Like, why he would come back. And I understand why, because in The Last Jedi, Snoke was killed. So, what kind of answer could you give? It's like when you're working, right? And you have to give an answer. You always explain to them to gently let the person that you're speaking to know that, oh, it's not the answer that you're looking for, but it's an answer. So that's what they answered it with us. That Snoke was a clone of Palpatine and this, and this because Snoke was dead. And I frankly couldn't believe that Snoke would be a clone. It was just a cop out answer because they killed him.
Yeah, because it's just like zero resemblance at all. Like, nothing that his mannerism, his stance, like nothing about Snoke actually ever said Palpatine.
There you go. My other points from that as well, because I'll probably touch back on that part with Palpatine. Oh God, when I look back on it, I think it was like the third day after on the weekend after that movie, and I'm just thinking how much SJW bullshit was littered in that movie. So many shots of women doing things that men have done. It was just forced. Like even at the end where she goes, there's a person that asks Ray, "Oi, nobody's been here in a while. Who are you?" That's a woman as well. So I'm just like, couldn't that have been like a family that was passing by? Again, men didn't really do much in this. They were very short. It's kind of like short-lived. Like Ray, you, I'd have to say that Daisy Ridley, who played Ray, man, they must have worked her hard because she was in practically like 98% of the shots.
Yeah, and they even took Rose out of 98% of the shots and just put her into the background as well.
Oh, that's another thing as well. Like I feel bad for her as an actress, because she was pretty much front and center for The Last Jedi, but it was for all the wrong reasons. All the wrong reasons.
And then literally her reward and the fan pandering was to just completely drop her character to some random character who says a couple of lines here and there.
Yeah, and that she's part of the engineering. She's the head of the engineering corps, and that's it. Like they even made that distinct scene where Finn is just like, "Hey, we're all gonna go on an adventure. You want to come with us?" "No, I gotta stay back. Leia told me I gotta do this, and this." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, that is benching someone if I've ever seen it before.
That's the word. That's the phrase I was looking for. Benching somebody. Like, I'll say this now. I was gonna say it later, but this trilogy is the most disjointed trilogy of all the other trilogies. It's rubbish. The character progression and the story. Like, if we had to go into another character as well, General Hux.
Oh, geez, didn't they give him a good send off?
Not even just a good send off. Like, he didn't even have a good arc. Like, and here's how I know how. And again, I'm not making this up. Episode 7, I saw General Hux as literally the leader, if not one of the main leaders of the First Order, as literally, as some people had called him, a space Nazi. Like, he gave that speech and he was just so no nonsense. And whenever he looked at, and I really liked the fact that whenever he looked at Kylo Ren without his stupid mask on, which I'm going to touch on in a second, in episode 7, like he just looked at him and was just like, you're nothing. You look like a child with a stupid mask on with some magic powers that you have, an outdated magician in this world where we are the First Order and we are going to be rulers of the galaxy. And I loved his I loved his character in that film. And then the Last Jedi made him to look like a complete bum, like a comedic bum.
Yes, like part I liked about his really liked about his character in episode 7 was that he had the presence of both Tarkin and Thrawn. Like he was this leader, this perfect military leader, no nonsense. This is how it's gonna be. We are gonna win. You are not going to. Did not give a damn. And yeah, you're right. Episode 8, you bitch. You failed. You screwed up. And then we're just gonna keep pushing you down and down and down and down until you're nothing.
And he was just comedy. And then he ended up as a rebel spy because he didn't want Kylo Ren to win. And then he dies like a spy. He just gets completely annihilated by General Prude, I believe his name is.
Yeah, which was like really,
Pride, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was just like, I didn't understand who the rebel spy was, and then when I found out who it was, I was just like, oh, really?
Yeah, it seemed like they're just like, we kind of screwed Hux up. Maybe we should just kill him and get rid of him. That'll fix it, right? Right?
It's a disappointing arc because Donald Gleason again is another great actor, and when he portrayed General Hux in the first film, I was just like, okay, I this guy was yeah, I was waiting for him to do maybe something incredible or to do some more atrocities or stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like it's like Captain Phasma, wasted, absolutely wasted.
Which is, guess, really, when you want to sum up that trilogy, that's probably another good way to do it. It was wasted.
And SJ, now that I think about it, SJW pandering with a female, say, stormtrooper with the best armor, by the way, best looking armor, and then she just gets owned by Finn.
With a one swift hit to the head.
Yes, that gave that scar. Now that I think about it, the scar of looking into her eye, that's the same sort of like breakages whenever Darth Vader got into like a fight and he'd have like a broken part of his mask, you could only see the eye. So I was just like, oh, you gave that to her too. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on I'm hating on SJWs and wham and shit because it's forced. It's always put in, or when people want to put that in, it's always forced and it's gender forced. You can Ray, like I said, with which we'll touch on the Mary Sue argument later. Ray could have been a great Jedi, by all means, but because it was like literally pun intended, forced pandering, and that she just has no problems whatsoever. Like it's basic storytelling. Every hero, isn't every hero is almost like they're born not from happiness. They're like born from always something that had traumatized them, which converts them into a hero in a sense. So she just hasn't had any issues, and that's the part that I hate. Forced stuff. I don't like. Don't get me wrong. I love female characters and them being strong and whatnot, but just force shit. No.
Yeah, and if anything, you have some development, have some where they struggle, like put some development where they get knocked down a little bit. Like even with the original trilogy, Luke loses his hand in Empire Strikes Back. He has that moment of defeat. Like he feels pain, but then he rises from it. Whereas Rey's just been set up as this almost pitch perfect character who has the one time she has a bit of fear is when she finds out she's a Palpatine, and it's like, oh my god, I could go evil because of my bloodline. It's like
And
that's
that's actually an
nothing.
answer in itself that she is perfect in everything that she does because Palpatine is practically perfect.
Well, he's not because he's lost every single time.
No, we'll talk about that in a second. Another point that I want to talk about is so with the reveal that now get this, because Leia has a lightsaber of her own, Master Jedi Skywalker and Master Jedi Organa, right? Because she's a master, right? So they both. My point is, they both know that Rey is a Palpatine. Like how? How?
Which again, I don't know whether they just wanted to leave that to the imagination or they just got really lazy and they're just like, they'll figure it out.
Because they were both masters at the time. So this goes back to again episode 7, where instead of when returning back from losing Han, she doesn't go to Chewie to hug, which I still think is fucking ridiculous. She should have hugged Chewie, but she goes to Rey and hugs Rey, and I'm like, for what? For what reason? And now this is supposed to be an answer to that.
Or like I'll take one slight step back and say that I don't think Leia was a master because in episode 9 Luke says that before she finished her training she saw her future and decided to give up, so I don't think she even reached knight status, to be honest.
And yet Rey calls her master.
Which again I guess is probably just a sign of respect because when you're learning something from someone you look at them like the master, but again, like he could have had Ghost Luke teaching her as well, and he was a master, so that would have worked. But nope, apparently even Force Ghost Luke just still chills out on his island,
In the Octo Island, yeah.
and yeah, somehow Obi-Wan just goes wherever the hell he pleases.
Well, yeah, he's been around. I found, okay, this is a bit nitpicky, but I found the bike chase launching the jetpack stormtroopers was weird. Like, I thought everything was hovercraft or like hover whatever, but they're using the stormtroopers were using bikes on the ground, which was weird.
Hey man, universe is in a recession, okay? Got to do what you got to do. But even on that scene, like when the jetpacks went up and Finn looks back and goes, "They're flying now." It's like, have you not met a fucking Mandalorian, dude?
They're flying now? Oh, they fly now? They fly now. Like, did you have to really say?
Literally, I was just like,
But I've seen that scene. They released a TV spot of that like a week before the movie came out, and Lucasfilm like cops so much shit. They're just like, "What is this crappy comedy? Why does he have to repeat it 3 times? Do you guys have nothing else better to say? This comedy shit." I was like, okay,
and that children is why I stayed away from the trailers.
yeah, there you go. So the other point, let me just skip over some crappy stuff. Okay, just like episode 8, I feel that there was a lot of and stupid scenes here. Well, not a lot of, but there was a few scenes here that were doing the whole subverting expectations. Chewie dying, C-3PO with the memory wiping, and Rey killing or thinking that he killed Kylo in their fight on the down Star Destroyer, whatever it was, inadvertently killing Leia.
It wasn't the damn Star Destroyer. That was actually the wreckage of the Death Star,
Oh, wreckage of the Star. Okay, yep.
which again, apparently science doesn't really hold much of a place there because I mean, you thought that metal inside of an ocean would never have deteriorated or rusted or bent out of shape and stayed perfectly for the dagger to line up to where you need to go because
Oh,
that makes
shut up.
sense.
That was going to be my other point. Oh my god. That was so convenient. It was stupid.
It's just like opening a door and opening the fridge door where there's a prepared sandwich. It's like, wow, that's convenient. I wanted lunch.
Oh my god. Oh my god, that dagger was the biggest load of shit.
Oh, and the fact that it was the dagger that killed her parents as well, and then led her to the Wayfinder, and oh, lordy, lordy, and the
It's just
throne.
too convenient.
And even leading to the throne room where Palpatine sat when Luke and Vader fought for the final battle before he was thrown down the chamber to where we thought he was going to die, but apparently not. And then that's where Rey meets her dark side self. Like everything just was way too convenient. And the fact that like on that island there's a bunch of first order stormtroopers who have also rebelled and created their own society somehow on a planet that seems very arid, but they're somehow living with horses of all things.
There you go. And that was also going to be my next several points, like the dagger, walking into the throne room, and now because I actually watched the Return of the Jedi, I see the other door. It's completely locked, and for some reason it opens for her. And let's not forget, this is a Death Star that shouldn't have any power
At all.
at
But
all.
let's not forget the secret to. And I really feel like if I was Kathleen Kennedy right now, the she would be like, "That's because she's a Palpatine," and
Whammon.
that's the only explanation you can get.
Whammon. And then she fights a doppelganger of herself, which was weird because where did that come from? What happened? Was that just her mind imagination? And then it just doesn't come back. I'm just, what the fuck?
Again, I think that was like they were just trying to rip again Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes into the Dagoa and he goes in that forest and fights Vader and then hits the mask and
It's
sees
just
that
too
it's him and
convenient. It's so
then it's just like.
convenient.
But even saying that, like even at that point, like in Empire Strikes Back, Yoda said how powerful the dark side that spot is. Only heartache you'll find, and it's like cool that gives a lead up. But this one's just like, yeah, we're gonna do this. I mean, kudos. That double bladed nunchuck lightsaber was pretty freaking wicked, and I'm very upset that I didn't get to see it again. But again, just too convenient and too perfectly lined up.
And then she managed to find the other Wayfinder that was in this one dedicated room that was next to Palpatine the whole time. Oh, God.
And he just left it there, knowing full well that somebody would need it one day because the Death Star was definitely going to blow up. Apparently, knew this and left that there to be found because he knew he was going to die. There's just too much that just didn't line up.
It didn't line up and it was too conveniently explained. Like, here's the thing when we were talking about before when Kylo dies and blah blah blah, his redemption, right? And he moves back to the light and he throws away his lightsaber after he's spoken with memory of dad, which was again a touching scene with Han. Like, I didn't think it was a redemption. Like, I mean, don't get. Oh, let me say that again. It is a redemption because he threw the lightsaber into the water. Blah blah blah. He did the opposite of Anakin from going from the dark to the light. Now, I would have thought that in the beginning, when he's trying to look for the Emperor, shouldn't he have been more ecstatic to know that the Emperor was alive? Because he loved Darth Vader so much in the first movie, and he wanted to finish what he started. And I'm like, should you be ecstatic? But no, he wants to take out. The moment that I saw that, oh, he wanted to destroy Palpatine, I thought two things. Either because he wanted the galaxy to himself, which made no fucking sense. Um, well, in a sense, it doesn't make any sense because he has to get rid of all the Jedi to supposedly, you know, finish what Darth Vader started. Or he wanted to get rid of Palpatine because he was already leaning towards the light anyway.
But again, like it just it didn't make sense. Like
That's
that
the thing.
end scene when Palpatine's there and he's like telling Rey, "Strike me down and take all the Sith inside you and become the ultimate thing." Like, why didn't you just do that at the start with Kylo? Like, you could have given him all your power, all your strength. He could have wiped Rey out like a bug on the ground. Everything would have been fine. Done. Easy done. Kylo, here, Sith powers. Take fleet. Destroy universe. Kill Rey. There we go. Done.
Yeah, it would have been much darker, much, much, much darker. Um, but again, GG to the writers. The thing also spanning this particular trilogy is all Force users practically expire when they've used the Force. So Luke dies after episode 8, Rey dies in this film after her defeat of Palpatine. Ben dies of this film after giving his some sort of life force to Rey. And then Leia dies from distracting Kylo during the fight that made Rey stab him and then inadvertently killing her. Like, what the fuck?
I think Jedi's need some energized batteries.
Or they're making it out to be like the Force is like some sort of like weird video game where the when it's completely depleted, you just can't bring it back up. I don't know. Like, when did this ever become a thing? And apparently, this trilogy shows that they all die when they use up all the Force.
Which again just doesn't have any continuity to any of the other films. And just like with episode 8, when they finally, I guess, really finally introduced the idea of fuel and having finite amount of fuel, and how force users have a finite amount of force they can use. It's, I don't know, I feel like they're trying to limit the universe, but not really make it any better.
I don't know either, man. Like, for this particular iteration on this saga, I still have no real connections to the new characters. Rey, Mary Sue, Finn, wasted. Rose Tico, wasted. Poe Dameron, so what? Like, my connections are still with C3PO, Lando, R2, and Chewie. And when Chewie saw Lando, that was a really great moment.
Really great, but then again, kind of awkward as well.
Bittersweet.
But again, kind of, as I said earlier, like just still kind of really brought everything to a halt because it just seemed really out of place for Lando's character to be in that location at that time.
The conveniency, yeah. And how the hell does he know Ray? How the hell did he know to look at those three? Maybe because they stuck out of the crowd, but again.
Again, just it was a film of convenience, which just didn't feel right.
Oh my god, I'm scrolling down and there's like still a whole bunch of points I want to talk about. Shit. Um, and I'm actually like getting tired. Well, because the thing is as well, like one that we didn't also explain or didn't get an explanation of is Finn. Two things. What did he want to tell her? And why is Finn force sensitive?
Because everyone is force sensitive, apparently.
Oh, that's
Apparently,
cold,
that's a
dude.
thing now. Oh, but that's like, it's just kind of like what they. It's. It honestly feels like the sequels were a race, but everyone got a participation trophy for just turning up. Good job, guys. Here you go.
That's a hell of a summary.
Yeah, it is. There we go. Sequels are a participation trophy. Everyone got one something for turning up. That's not how it should work.
I would say it
Like,
in this particular saga, yeah. Obviously, the originals in 1, 2, and 3, no.
no, definitely not. And I think realistically, like, I will give, and you're gonna hate me for this. I'm gonna give Rian some credit. As poorly as he delivered, the base idea that he was trying to get across, I was more than happy to take a bite off, and they were leading to it. And I think if JJ just took a snippet off it, it could have delivered something really good, and I would have walked out there saying "Holy fuck" instead of "What the hell," and that would have been that whole idea where the very last scene they're saying where Kylo all film was kept saying, let go of the past, let go of everything. Like when I heard that, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like let's forget the Jedi, let's forget the Sith, let's forget the Republic, let's build something different. And I think if as poorly as Rian done it, I think JJ could have just taken that little thing and that little idea of no Jedi, no Sith, and take it into this one, and it could have been something so much better. But instead, we got a rehash of everything we've already seen. Bad guy rises, bad guy changes, someone changes heart, somebody looks like they're gonna die, somebody comes back, good guy wins, and everyone's happy. And to me, the biggest disappointment was I felt like I've watched it all before. I didn't walk away being like, holy crap, that was amazing. that was something different. That was unexpected. It was more like I literally went in and could have said this movie line for line without even seeing it, and that was my biggest disappointment about the whole thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you're right. Ryan Johnson does and should get credit for trying to do something new and whatnot, but his execution was poor. And J.J. Abrams for this movie, that's why a lot of people said that it was just too safe. And I'm just like, well, where could you go from what Ryan Johnson had put in? Um, because it was just received so poorly that they thought, okay, we'll try this safe direction and go back to J.J. Abrams, whereas they couldn't have made maybe something from that. Because honestly speaking, when I left The Last Jedi, I was like, so where to from here? Because either to finish the trilogy, if Snoke is dead, what other villain could possibly be, could be finishing off the saga? And there's none because there's I can see why they went with Palpatine because introducing a new a new villain would just not make any sense. So Palpatine, I remember watching some of the interviews where they go, "Oh, was he from the beginning?" And Kathleen Kennedy goes, "Yes," and I'm like, "No, no, he wasn't." Because after the Last Jedi, after you guys not vetoing or even looking at that script, and then seeing the backlash of how divided the fans were, because you're so money hungry and whatever, you didn't want to put in the effort to maybe go with Ryan Johnson's say particular vision, um, or because of the backlash of the fans, and you're not going to get your 1 billion. Because let's not forget, Disney actually got. I think this year alone, they've almost had $10 billion worth of movies. The Lion King, Lady and the Tramp, um, what's it called, and some other Aladdin, 1 billion each. So they're just so money hungry for that they just said, okay, let's bring JJ back, let's put in Palpatine, and let's even try and bring in Anakin Skywalker. Hayden Christensen came back. They filmed a couple of scenes with him, but apparently, rumor has it that Kathleen Kennedy took him out and cut him from the final thing because it detracted from Ray. So again, SJW whamming, pandering. And it's just a mess. This is what happened. It's just a mess.
Yeah, literally, like if I had the opportunity to go back and if I sat down with the writers and they're like, hey, we want to, Disney wants to make $1 billion, we're going to bring back Palpatine, what do you think? I would literally reach over that table and slap them and then say, okay, if you want to do it in a way that's smart, not in a way that people aren't going to go, well, how the hell did he do that? He fell down a Death Star that was in mid range of firing, center of it as it exploded, and you're going to try and sell to me that he's alive on some sort of weird ass hook machine with weird cables that seems to be giving him life when you could have done something unique, different, and that would have still made sense. Like you literally could have had it that he had a freaking holocron that he put his knowledge in, that somebody found and learned from it. And that person might have been Snoke. He might have found the holocron. And then the movie might have started off with Kylo wanting to find the knowledge that Snoke had. And he finds the holocron, which then takes him to the fleet. That could have been something different and not so more asking how, why, what the hell is that? What are they? Who are those guys in the stadium? How are you shooting lightning in the sky like that? How have you had all these ships buried under the ground for so long? Like, you would have had less questions.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next couple of points, but you already addressed them, so I'm totally skipping those. But good for you to point that out because yeah, that was again. I think this all stems back to the Last Jedi. It just didn't make sense. And Mark Hamill himself, like before Disney decided to suppress him, and put a gag order on him. Uh, if you see those interviews, man, like here's the thing, right? It's not. This is where I put the full blame on the director, Kathleen Kennedy, and Bob Iger, right? Um, if you watch the interviews in The Force Awakens for Rey, the newcomers, Finn, Oscar Isaac, he's a newcomer and all that shit. Like they were genuinely excited. Like it's their first Star Wars film. They're part of history. Blah blah blah. You get great interviews, right? I don't know if you've seen them. Uh, but then you look at the Last Jedi, and obviously they have to be suppressed because they can't give away too much details. Blah blah blah. But then their mood is very different. It's so different. It's as if like uh it just they didn't it's like they didn't like being there. You know what I mean? And then what I was going to say with Mark Hamill was that Mark Hamill's interviews were just raw. And he warned us. He warned us so much. He said, fundamentally speaking, Luke Skywalker, this is not the Luke Skywalker that a lot of people will know. He's very different, and I had disagreements with the director, blah blah blah. And then I'm just like, in the beginning, I was like, okay, this sounds really bad, but if Mark Hamill's saying this, I'll keep it in the back of my mind. And then when I watched it, I was just like, oh shit, he warned us like terribly of just how rubbish the idea that Luke Skywalker would want to kill his nephew over a dream in his sleep. You see where I'm getting at?
Yeah, yeah, no.
Whereas,
Like
of course, we compare him to Return of the Jedi. He, in some people's eyes, were reckless to go and try and, turn one of the most feared Imperial enforcers to the right. He was the right hand of the Emperor, Darth Vader, to come back to the light. And I only heard about this recently where people thought that he was reckless. I always believed that he was doing something that was incredibly good. But then now that I think about it, okay, it is kind of reckless, but the end justifies the means in that moment or in those moments where he goes in and he's willing to sacrifice his life to be to bring him back, you know. As simple as that. He wasn't thinking about the Emperor. I don't think he just wanted Darth Vader. He just wanted his dad back, to be honest. Um, and to get him back from this horrendous thing that was consuming him, which was the dark side, and he was going to go through all lengths and even dying for that. So, which will bring me to another point soon about something else. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense. The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker would go into exile. Uh, I mean, yes, the Jedi Temple was killed. Sorry, the Jedi, the school, the temple, the people were killed and such. But he was going to kill his nephew over a dream, a bad feeling, a premonition, and most connivingly doing it in his sleep. That's what I think a lot of people have problems with Luke Skywalker in Episode 8.
yeah, and like that's like for the better part of it, that's the only part I didn't swallow well with Luke was the fact that he would try and kill his nephew in his sleep. Like everything else, yeah, it makes sense. Like, you've freed the galaxy, you brought your father back to the light, you're rebuilding the order, but then it all comes crumbling down. Your students are killed, murdered. One of your most promising students runs away to the dark side. Your whole world collapses. Sure, yep, makes sense. You want to get away from it all, but the whole lead up to it of him wanting to kill him in the first place just didn't work, and it didn't play well to his character. Like episode 4, he's this conniving little bratty kid who kicks up his feet in the dirt about wanting to help his uncle and auntie out, and pissed off the droids going away, and then wanting to learn about the Force, and then disobeying Yoda's first warning to go fight Vader for the first time, get his hand cut off, but he learns and he grows and he becomes this much calmer Force. Who then as you said, his mission's to try and get his dad back. Self-sacrifice, not afraid, not arrogant, very calm, straight to the point. Even his presence in front of the Emperor, he's very calm. He's like, no, I don't believe you. No, I'm not going to join you. He's very more collected. So it just didn't work that this person who's learnt from those mistakes and not to just jump the gun on a feeling, would literally jump the gun on a feeling. Like, it had to be done better than that. And I think that's the biggest letdown off that episode, was that transition of Luke. Like, yes, the isolation made sense. The reason for it, yes, to a point, but no, he would not have done that.
Exactly. Not even the inkling of even igniting the lightsaber. Because remember, he's about to strike down his best friend's kid and his sister's son.
Yeah, that's just, it's not played to his character. It's something he would have meditated on. It's something he would have discussed with him. He would have talked to him. He wouldn't have just been like, oh, I got a bad feeling. He seems to be agitated. Yep. Yeah, I should kill him.
That's where I think most of the criticism lies with The Last Jedi. When you ruin Luke Skywalker, everything else got ruined. So, um, but I don't want to hang around for The Last Jedi. There was some other really poignant points. I'm skipping out a lot because I know that we've gone on for a bit. But there were some other major points I wanted to talk about. Blah 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 blah. I've actually maybe just dipping back into maybe episode 7. So if this is supposed to be all canon, Canon, I don't know why people keep typing it Canon. That's a projectile, a weapon that's got nothing to do with Canon lore. But why did
It has
Anakin's
gunpowder in it.
it does. So why did Anakin's lightsaber in episode 7 go to her when she called for it if she's a Palpatine? There's no answer. It's just silence. It doesn't
Kathleen,
make any
listen.
sense.
Or even better, how did Maz get it?
Yeah, that is a story for another time. Well, I'm never gonna
We're
get it unless I read the
waiting.
fucking books. Wait, what'd you say?
Ah, it's great that we're waiting.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like we're never gonna get it. So that's a question. That's more of a sort of a rhetorical question. Um, I don't know if you felt this, but I felt that that last part where she's got the double lightsabers, which is Leia's lightsaber and Anakin slash Luke's lightsaber, it felt so Avengers Endgame, man. And here's the reminding part. Palpatine's line was like, "I am all the Sith," and then she goes, "And I am all the Jedi." And I'm like, "Did you just steal that from Tony Stark? Like, are you for real?"
I get a feeling that eventually somebody's probably going to edit that scene and have Tony
It's already
Stark
been
in the
done.
background clicking his finger. Oh, it's already been done. Oh my god, I love to
Somebody's
see
already
that.
done it. So it's like, again from Avengers Endgame, I am the inevitable, and I am Iron Man. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like this is so Avengers Endgame.
I mean, if you want to try and win, I guess, steal what someone else is doing, copy my homework, but don't make it obvious.
It's so obvious, dude.
But see, it's different because she's Jedi, not Tony Stark or Iron Man. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. And this brings me back to another Avengers Endgame part where Poe Dameron knows that it's all over, and he's doing his soliloquy, and then Lando Calrissian does a "on your left" from Endgame, and then the Armada just comes in from hyperspace. And don't get me wrong, I thought that moment was kind of cool. It was still kind of stolen, and then the spaceship scenes and the fighting was just fucking boring, dude.
Boring and just very convoluted. Like, there was just way too much happening, and it didn't give you what was happening. It was just like, here's a shot of a ship flying into here, here's a shot of a ship blowing up, here's a close up of someone's face going, oh no. And it's like, give us something more than that. Like, you look at all the other movies with the Starfighter episodes. It goes in on their faces. It has them talking for a little bit. It has a discussion between them. There's talking. There's emotion. There's connection. In this, it was just, here's a picture of spaceships flying and blowing up. You're welcome.
And I gotta actually give a shout out to my godbrother who will probably be listening to this, but he did mention to me and he showed me a photo where when the Falcon is coming in with the Armada, you actually do see the Mandalorian ship almost front and center.
I'm definitely gonna have to give it a rewatch with the magnifying glass.
Or I'll get the screenshot for you. But
Thank you.
it's exactly what you just said. Um, the starfighting, the ships and the starship fighting, it had its moments. It had its discussions. It had its bad bits, good shot, one ship goes down, blah blah blah. But the reason why I say the spaceship battle in Rise of Skywalker was utterly shit was because in Return of the Jedi, in that space battle, there was actual progression, right? And also it started off terribly for the rebels. Like you would have thought that okay, the shield is down is whatever, but we're already seeing that, and I cannot believe I have to talk about Return to Jedi like this, but we're already seeing that um, Han is late. Han and the ground team are late to destroy the shield generator, right? Um, and the fleet have come in. The rebel fleet have come in. Everything with everything that they've got and they've noticed that the shield is still up and they have to actually backtrack and do a U-turn. Now, I just a quick branching off, but same sort of topic. I read the book, and in that particular moment, the book that came out, I think shortly after, maybe 5 years after Return of the Jedi, or whatever. I remember reading it back in high school. When they had to do that U-turn, already the rebels were in trouble, and they had lost, I think, about 6 or 7 ships when they had to do that U-turn away from the Death Star because they ran into the shields. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it was disaster from the get go.
Exactly.
But
It was disaster from the get-go. But my point is that from that progression, oh sorry, from that thing, we see a progression in the space battle where we don't see anything in Rise of Skywalker. Yes, there's a decline because they're fighting a suicide mission. There's a whole bunch of like star destroyers that have risen out of nowhere, and they're just this tiny sort of armada resistance, whatever. With Return of the Jedi, and it was actually I wouldn't even call it a decline. It just there was no progression in itself in Rise of Skywalker. Whereas Return of the Jedi, it's like they've started off on the back foot. Fighters have come in. They begin their fight as they're trying to get into I think at one stage it was like a stalemate. They were picking off fighters, whatever, but then Lando says he has no idea what their Star Destroyers are doing, right? So they're at a stalemate, but the rebels are losing, right? And then you have the Death Star actually targeting, and their first target was a Mon Calamari ship, one of the Mon Calamari Royal cruisers, by the way, which is a formidable ship. Um, anyway, then Lando has an idea of look. Oh, Akbar wants them to retreat, and Lando knows that they're not going to get another chance. So they go, okay, it's suicidal, but let's see what the Imperials do if we decide to start attacking or having fighters come close to their Star Destroyers. And then they bring them into the fight, right? So again, there's progression. It's suicidal by all means, and there's progression. And for me, I still watch it to this day. And actually, recently, I went to go see a concert of them playing a live concert for the Return of the Jedi movie, where you watch the movie and you got a live symphony orchestra there, right? And it still gets me, like where that progression of that space battle, it's just, I mean, it's inch by inch that they're trying to claw their way to victory, but it shows that they're in trouble. Like they're not winning. They're actually losing more than what they could sustain. And then all of a sudden, the Death Star shoots another, I think another cruiser, and it's just it's all hope lost. You get that dreaded feeling that this is not going to end well. Like this is actually dipping into the waters of, and I always still feel it, even though I've watched it 100 times. Like they're just gonna fail, and you get that feeling. The moment that you get that feeling is the moment it's like, okay, the guy who did it, I think it was the directed it, which was Marquand, Richard Marquand. is I think he's succeeded in his storytelling of that particular fight, where it's like, wait a second, we're in the last. This is supposed to be episode 6, Return of the Jedi, the final film, and we're near at the space battle, and they're going to lose. And then of course things come to fruition, blah blah blah. The rest is history, right? But again, to go on that rant, it's like that had a progression, that had a sense of dread, and then as they make their way to the port, they go inside the Death Star, then you hear that music, like you hear that, really, like, okay, they're coming back and they're going to do something amazing.
But even like following on from that, even in Return of the Jedi, when the shields were finally down, nothing indicated like they felt like they were going to win. They were like, "Yep, the shield's down. Now's our chance." But it
That's a
wasn't
good point.
confidence. It
That's a good
was just
point.
like, we've got to go now. Like, this is our last chance. We may not get this. And even flying through, Lando was still nervous. He could still, like, his acting was perfect. Like, you could still feel the tension in him. And flying through, even though they were getting through the ship, they were flying through, there was still that nervousness. Like, the fleet was still getting demolished. People on the ground were still fighting. Like, everything was really tense. You had no idea what was going to happen.
Oh, that's such a good point.
And I think that's ultimately, everything aside, all the nitpicking things, that's what Rise of Skywalker was missing. It was missing that storytelling. It was missing that ability to actually make it feel like there was hope being lost. Sitting there and watching it, you're just like, yeah, so when's everyone going to turn up? Yep, there's everyone. Cool. When's the slight moment of dread going to come? Oh, there we go. He's shooting lightning into the sky. That's pretty cool. All right, cool. There's a slight little bit of dread. And then you have the conclusion of where they win. It's like, I didn't have the emotion of that. Holy crap, what's going to happen? Oh, gee God, oh no, 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 what's going on? Like, even when the command ship was going down and you had Finn on there with bloody Stormtrooper Rebel 101, who I don't even remember the name because that's how important she was. They were on the ship flying downwards, and everyone's like, oh my God, we'll get down to get them. It's like, yeah, I know you're going to get them because that's what this movie's going for. They're going for happy endings. No one's going to get hurt.
And
And
Lando saved them, yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, well, cool.
Enjoy.
Yeah, but like in Return of the Jedi, even characters that you never met before, like when that first Mon Calamari ship went down, you felt bad for that. Like, you're like, holy crap. But these random starfighters that did die, you're just like, cool, good story. Sorry you died. And that's what was missing. That ability to actually create a feeling, create an emotion, to actually make you feel like you're there with the resistance fighting. It was missing, and that's what killed it.
Yeah, those are really, really good points, because I still remember the part where, yeah, you're right. Lando was still nervous, and he even made that mistake of actually damaging the ship. And he's just like Nien Yub, or I think that was his name. He's like, Hoite, and then they lose the dish, and then Lando's just like, oh, that was too close. Like, you're right. That's such a great point that I missed out. He was still nervous, and that was even though Lando was like laughing that he heard the I guess that was probably a sense of relief when he heard that the shield generator was down, and he was just sort of rejoicing a little bit. And then you hear that little chime of and just before he goes back to the throne room, as the Falcon, I think a couple of A wings and Wedge's X-wing and a couple of other X-wings make a race for the port, for the hole in the Death Star. So yeah, yeah, that's some really good points that I didn't really pick that up. So yeah, I definitely want to watch that again. And then just to add on to that a little bit as well, whenever the space battle was looking that it was turning for a worst, they they decided, and the director's so harsh. Like, I hate this bit. Like, it always like gets me hard, where they're fighting and it looks like the rebels on the ground are not faring well, including the newly joined allies, the Ewoks. Now, I don't get what people's issues were with the Ewoks. Probably they at the time, didn't like them because of such and such, but that was probably a generational thing. Me, I always loved them. And when they showed, that bit where like the Ewoks were just failing to take down an ATST, then there was an Ewok that was paragliding, and then it dropped a stone on a stormtrooper, but the stormtrooper, in all of his infinite luck, shot down the paraglider, and it spiraled to the ground. Um, and then definitely, yeah, and that,
You had the other Ewok actually go over to the smoldering corpse
hmm
and actually,
yeah, that still gets me.
yeah, like that is dread visualized. That is
It's
that
war,
gives you
and
it's
that's the
war. Yeah,
yeah, and that's the part where I've always will always contentiously say to people where they go, "Oh, it's a kids' film." Like I don't know if you heard recently, Freddie Prinze Jr. went on a massive cussing rant about against all Star Wars fans and giving them shit because he knew all about Star Wars, blah blah blah, and that he kept on reiterating George Lucas's words of, "It's just a kids' film." It's not a kids' film. No way in hell is it a kids film. Like just that one bit where those two Ewoks and it's like, Mama and all that stuff. God, that still hurts. Like I remember I was in the what was it? The concert and like, oh God, I just had to choke back tears. It was kind of embarrassing, but I thought like I've never been able to grow out of that. Like if I see that on TV, if I even watch it on my own, it still gets me because it's like it's a reminder that both sides are fighting for whatever reasons that they are, but the one that's fighting for the most and that has the most to lose, I think, with the rebels themselves. And with newly joined allies who are like literally the size of like teddy bears. They're cute. Like I had no issues with them. And then I realized like, even though that bit still gets me, I read in Wikipedia that Ewoks are like a bunch of little savages, dude. Because those traps that they laid, like the logs that they let go down that hill that tripped up the ATST, the two logs that they crushed that other ATST with, and then those little all those things in that scene where they were like demolishing all the Imperials, like throwing rocks at them and all that
yeah,
stuff. You remember that scene?
oh yeah.
You probably know this, but like for some people that don't know, it's like those things were not just set up so quickly because of the war. You know how they befriended them, and then it's like the next day they wanted to go to the shuttle and they had their orders and stuff. Those traps are already in place because those were there for hunting game,
And let's just not forget, even at the end of the movie, the celebrations, they were using stormtrooper helmets for drums
and they were eating them.
and eating them.
They
Like,
were literally eating them, and they were and all those traps they had was for larger game, like 10, 15, 20 times their size, based on what I've read on Wikipedia. Like they're little savages, dude. They're cute little savages. But apart from that, um, yeah, that scene always gets me. Like it just reminds me that it was a do or die sort of nothing. And again, having that particular scene, even though it lasted for a good agonizingly, it was like 30 seconds, dude. They were just running, and it was I thought it was a little bit cheap now that I'm older, but it's effective where they put in the baby crying. Like you hear a baby crying when the blaster bolt hits one of them and both of them like on the ground, and it's like, oh, you couldn't have evoked like a more harrowing, uh pretty much a PG-13, almost bordering M sort of imagery, like mature audiences M imagery, where uh a parent and a child, he's just lost the parent.
they humanized the Ewoks.
Oh, they did. And in those 30 seconds, like I said, yeah, it always brings back the it always brings back for me the seriousness of this war that George had created of that war. So I do I'm hoping it's the director that included that because it's just yeah it's a harrowing moment. But anyway, the other point that I'm just gonna skip a shitload because I've just been yammering. We've already talked about the dagger. Okay, I want to pose a question to you on this one because I've been thinking about this and people cannot wrap their head around it. So Disney Star Wars, and this goes to another particular, going back to the other ones. So essentially, Disney Star Wars is now Rey Palpatine, or at the end of the movie, it's Rey Skywalker, who is already a Palpatine and is now considered the chosen one. Now, my sort of mid questions or broken down questions is: do you think Anakin's redemption is useless, and that Luke Skywalker has now not become the chosen one because now it's Rey? Because essentially, the last Skywalker, or if we had to be very technical, the last Skywalker was Ben Skywalker, or Ben Solo, and he died, and he just disappeared, and that's it.
Oh, that's tough.
Because in a sense, with Rey now being considered as the chosen one, here's the other thing that a lot of people are not agreeing with me on, or not even agreeing with me, or don't see my logic in this. Hasn't Palpatine essentially won?
Mm. I would not say, from my perspective, I wouldn't say that Rey is the chosen one, but I would perhaps say that she was the totem for the chosen one, and that ultimately I would put down victory to Ben, because in the end of the day, he put himself in a position to open up Rey to have the two lightsabers to defeat Palpatine, sacrificed his life force to bring her back, and ultimately bring balance. So I would give the victory to Ben and ultimately give the middle finger to Kennedy and say, no, sorry, Rey's not the one.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Because the other reason why I say this is because I don't know if you ever heard or if you remember what the Jedi voices were saying to Rey. Definitely one of them was Anakin Skywalker, and he did, and I did hear him very clearly say, "Bring balance to the Force like I have." So that answers the question, or in JJ's mind or Disney's mind, that they're saying that Anakin fulfilled his legacy or his prophecy in a sense. Um, but it doesn't talk about Luke. My feelings is that with the return of Palpatine, right, and for him to be defeated by Whammon, um, essentially Anakin failed. He threw him down the shaft, and then he came back. Luke Skywalker was supposed to be the one that brought balance to the Force. Essentially, well, actually no, he's not even part of this conversation because he completed his mission in bringing back his dad back to the light side. So sorry, I don't know why I brought up Luke. It's mainly got to do with Anakin then. So I still feel as if like Anakin failed.
I think he did, and like ultimately, I don't think it's any fault of his own. I think it's just the powers that be that have ultimately made him fail.
Or it's the powers of Disney's plot armor.
Yes, exactly. I think really, considering Ben is technically a Skywalker, in a way, Skywalker did fulfill their destiny
Mm.
in one way.
But here's the thing, though, right? Going back to what you were saying about the emotions and stuff. When they came back and landed on, I don't even know what planet they were on. It just looked like a Yavin 4 hack jungle planet. When they came back, it wasn't like a celebration like Return of the Jedi. I just didn't feel mm, like it just kind of felt like yeah, this was gonna happen and that they were gonna win. And then for me, when it finished that scene, I was waiting for the like the credits to roll. But then they had to add in that extra scene of her doing the Ray thing, sliding down like the first movie, sliding down to the thing, and then burying the lightsabers, which I thought was weird because Leia had nothing to do with Tatooine. But then again, Alderaan's destroyed, and then that whole scene of her just calling herself a Skywalker, and I'm like, so that means that anybody can just be. I mean, that's what the Last Jedi was also trying to allude that everybody could be a Jedi. I'm like, oh, shut up. Like you're completely delusionalizing the mythos and the mysticism of Jedi. Um, but yeah, I just never understood that end scene. And then let's not forget the kissy kissy lesbian scene.
Yeah, I didn't even pay that a second of attention. I was like, part of me actually suspected that that character was actually same sex attracted. So when I saw it, I was just like, I knew that was gonna happen.
When I saw it, I'm just like, oh god, JJ, why are you pandering?
Because the entire film was pandering.
See, there you go. I'm glad somebody actually sees these things from my things. So the last couple of points here that I wanted to double check. Oh yeah, that was disappointing with the whole Hayden Christensen being. He's already come out in public saying that he wishes his scenes were in the movie. Anakin Skywalker. Okay, people are telling me that what a load of shit this is, right? People are theorying that Kylo, when he gave his life force to her, and why his hand was hovering above her stomach, was that he was impregnating her. And I'm like, what? Shut the fuck up.
That's not how pregnancy works.
Well, they all think that, like, they're all going with the whole idea that because I don't know how. I don't know how Ben knew the whole force healing thing shit to revive Ray. Because Ray was dead. Like, her eyes were open. It was creepy. Her eyes were like dead eye, right? And then he managed to bring her back to life. Then they kissed stupidly. But people are saying that, yeah, he impregnated her. And I'm like, he's not Darth Sidious. Or sorry, he's not Darth Plagueis. He doesn't just change the midichlorians or whatever.
No,
Because
he's definitely not that powerful yet.
yeah, because now people are also saying, and I can't confirm if it's true, but people are saying that Palpatine impregnated Shmi Skywalker to create Anakin. What a load of shit.
You got to fill plot holes somehow.
It's just stupid. I get tired of people. It's just frustrating. All right, so final thing I do want to talk about. Hold on.
Drum roll.
Is the Mary Sue argument. So a lot of people don't know what the whole Mary Sue thing is about. So it's like, okay, it's literally going against storytelling 101, right? There's a video of Stan Lee talking to the people who did Halo 343 Studios, I think the creative director. He was doing some sort of interview with them. I don't know why he got involved in Halo. Who knows? It was Stan Lee. He's a god. Anyway, um, he was talking to them, and they asked him, what is your key to success with all your characters?" And he goes, "Well, they have to come from, they're young, they're strong, but they're strong enough to come to eventually get over a trauma or a crisis. Because every good hero," he said, was that they have to come from a place of struggle. Like I said earlier, way earlier. Like I said, was it heroes are not born from happiness, or they do not come from happiness. So they always have to have some sort of traumatizing thing to happen to them to give them the birth of a hero, the birth of who they're destined to be, like Spider-Man. So the Mary Sue argument is like the reason why and this is my opinion on this, again, my opinion on this is because, and a lot of people's opinion, but I say this is because she's got no struggles. And you mentioned this as well. She's had absolutely no struggles. The first movie, she picked up a lightsaber, defeated Kylo Ren. Holy shit, right? And then in the second movie, she goes into that weird cave, that little Dagobah cave in Octo. Weird how convenient that is. And finds out that her parents are nothing. She knows how to pilot. Oh, sorry. Also, in the first movie, she knows how to pilot the Millennium Falcon, but has never piloted it before. Um, but of course, then that actually, I just realized now that I've been speaking, the whole Mary Sue argument is completely answered because she's a Palpatine.
Spot on. They literally wrapped up Mary Sue to a T. Insane. Palpatine. There's your answer.
Oh, the other thing as well is the other 2 points. I think this would be the final 2 points. Kylo Ren and uh repairing his mask. For what reason?
See, like, for me, like, could have made him, like, Palpatine could have literally made him like Vader 2.0 if he wanted to. There's no point in repairing the broken mask, which, follow up question, how did the mask survive when he smashed it in an elevator on a ship that basically got ripped in half?
Here you go.
Again, convenience.
And convenience. Then I just remembered why they actually repaired it was because they wanted to recreate that scene of that guy who was disobeying Darth Vader, but then this one disobeyed Kylo Ren and asked about that little weird line of "Does my mask look blah blah blah?" And that guy said something wrong, and then he forced not dropped him, but force slammed him into the roof. And I'm just like, and then after that, he never wears the mask again. I'm just like, what is the point of the mask?
There is literally no point to the mask. That's the worst thing.
The moment that he removed the mask from The Force Awakens, I was like, oh, you've just killed it, actually. Like, you've killed it. It's like people who are having a go at, like, the. Ooh, I better not mention that. Uh. Actually, no, I better not mention that. I was about to say something about the TV series. No, never mind.
Okay, we'll play it safe.
Ooh. But my last part then is the part that actually got me evoking a lot of emotions was when Chewie finds out Leia's died. Um, that broke me immediately. Immediately broke me for the connotations of what it is. So Chewie, the last organic sort of being, he's been through wars. He was there for the Battle of Kashyyyk and whatever from the Clone Wars. But then he loses everybody. He's lost Luke, he's lost Leia, he lost Han, and he had that. He even got Han's medal at the end, which it was okay. It was a good tribute. He had to get it from ANSI's Maz Kanata. Um, and then yeah, just his emotion that he lost Leia. Now, here's the thing, right? I said this earlier before. When he lost Han, like that's his best buddy, dude. Like that's the best buddy. They've saved each other countless times. He didn't really get much of a mourning period, right? Before he had to return back to the Falcon and co-pilot with Ray to go to Octo, right? You remember that, right?
Yeah, it was just like, he's dead. He screamed, shot Kylo, got in the ship, landed,
And then he
sees
was just
Leia literally covered Ray, and it's like, let's go again.
almost. He did have a. There was a scene where he was just like sitting on his own, and he was just like he was mourning, but you would have thought that the mourning would be so much more like heartfelt, right? Now, when Leia died, and don't get me wrong, right? Again, got lots of respect for Carrie Fisher, lot of respect for Leia. But just the fact that he shows this much more emotion to Leia is bewildering to me. It's bewildering. And again, all I can think of was Whammon and Kathleen Kennedy saying, "Look, Han died, but this is Leia. This is our princess, the princess of Disney. Blah blah blah. The end of a saga. She's died. Make Chewie cry for her more." And it just didn't sit well with me when I recovered from it. Like a couple of days later, I'm just like, again, and it just didn't sit well with me, and I just found that stupid. And then it just brings me back to my comment that I said earlier, and then I'll always say this probably to the day I die. This trilogy is the most disorganized, disjointed trilogy. Like my yeah, sorry, yeah, it's just disjointed. End of story.
Disjointed and just lacks just anything that forms what is the basis of good storytelling.
Yeah, or even just the basics of storytelling 101. Like holy shit, dude. And here's the thing that I also found really annoying as well in terms of lack of foresight and progression, right? The characters don't even get really new updates to their clothes. Ray still got the same fucking thing that she wore from episode 7, except that she has a hood. And I found out what the hood was for. And get the reason. Because it was supposed to be mimicking the hood of Princess Leia from episode 4. I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, just give her a robe or give her a different color, right, to show her progression.
Yeah, don't just be like, same outfit, but she's just watched it and added a hood.
Yeah. So I'm like, so is that all that she wears and whatever? I'm like, because Luke had it again. Luke had the same thing. Hell, he had several costume changes. Hoth, sorry, from episodes 4 to episode 5, Hoth, and then that particular clothing that they had for Bespin, which I thought was pretty cool clothing. That suit that he wore when he was in Bespin. And then obviously the all black as the Jedi in Return of the Jedi. But again, like the main characters like didn't really have a progression in even their clothing. And I'm like, are you for real?
I'm gonna literally just put that down to just Disney trying to market these characters so pump out their toys. They think that they're recognizable and can be pumped out in mass numbers and give mass dollars, and they can throw money elsewhere instead of just being like, hey, why don't you just do what the other one's done and you just release different toys with different outfits for different scenes? Because that's what people do. If you're in winter, you wear a jumper. If you're in summer, you wear less clothes. People do. They don't wear the same outfit 7 days a week because plot twist, guys, it gets a bit smelly.
That too, but the fact that you've actually had to mention that it was for money and for the clothing and for the whatever, it just shows how unbelievably short-sighted Disney have become ever since they've acquired, you know,
Everything.
everything. Like I don't understand how they don't get it wrong too much with the Marvel universe. Maybe because it was Stan Lee that also gave in some mad input, but now that he's gone, will we see some really shitty changes or shitty, say, downward spirals for future Marvel films? Um, but because they've also acquired 21st Century Fox, we're probably not going to get an Aliens or a Predator. But with Lucasfilm and all that stuff, it's just it just reeks of like no forethought. Just see how much money we can get, see how much money we can scum suck out of these desperate fans.
Yeah, there was a time where Disney was the creator of dreams and now they're the killer of them.
Don't get me wrong, I shouldn't be thinking or even wanting to agree with that particular statement because Disney have always, they're supposed to be for kids, but as you grow older and you can see different outlets talking about how much money they've made, it kind of makes you just feel gross. Like I hate it when shows that I'm watching or whatever, or even some other podcasts, like they talk about how much money they make. I'm like, shit, you could take out poverty with that kind of cash,
And
or
yeah, they
climate change,
anything.
anything with that kind of cash. So I don't know. I don't. For me, um, I don't know what's the future of Star Wars. I really don't.
Oh, let's just hope that, for really argument for the goodness of it, that John Favreau has a lot more say in it than anyone else, because what he's done with The Mandalorian alone has been brilliant, and I hope to God that he's given a bit more reins with future films.
Well, I only just recently begun The Mandalorian. I'm up to episode 5 now. Should be finishing it later tonight, but I've noticed that some of the stories in The Mandalorian have been grasped from other concepts, like what was it? That old samurai film where the samurai help a village from bandits and stuff like that. I can say you know, and then the main focus of Baby Yoda as well. I have to see what that's all about. But so far for me, The Mandalorian has been okay. I don't see what everybody's busting a nut over. Maybe I have to finish it off to see what that is. And I already know that season 2 is coming out next year in 2020. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It sounds hopeless, but like I don't have any. I mean, I'm glad it's over. I'm just glad that it's finished. So then people can just leave it alone, and I think it just needs to take some time to just sit and then to either be forgotten or people who really love The Last Jedi or whatever. That's their prerogative. That's cool. But I'm just like, this trilogy I felt was almost a waste of time.
And it really had the chance not to be, but alas, it was just not done right, too convoluted, too disjointed, and ultimately we've just got in what's happened and try and really just focus on the parts they done well and hope that it's enough to not focus on the parts that didn't do so well.
Mm, I don't know, dude. But also as well, let's not forget, we're also apparently, and for some strange reason, I don't know how they're gonna fit this in, but we're apparently going to get a Kenobi series.
Yes, because nothing like a film with 15 years wandering in a desert.
What is he going to do though? Like, if here's the thing though, because I've also read some of the comics as well. After Order 66, the Jedi were hunted down mercilessly, right? Even if there was an inkling of Jedi, I think apparently, or either the Force that was being used, Darth Vader could feel that, and then he would track them down or something, or I don't know. It was just a bad time for those who survived the Purge. And then it's like, if any, I feel that if there's at any time that that Kenobi actually wields a lightsaber, it's just not going to make any sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it'll just wouldn't make like I don't know. Like I guess it's gonna be one of those things where just to wait and see what happens and expect the worst or expect nothing and hopefully become surprised. For me, it would only be really enjoyable if Ewan McGregor reprises his role because
He is.
oh thank God,
That is confirmed.
oh thank God, thank you. Then I
But
have
that's half the battle, though.
I don't know. It's you're gonna have to give it to people who understand storytelling 101, who understand the universe, who can link all the times. Look, I'm gonna say this out loud, and hopefully some of them's listening. Please look at the stuff that's been made non-canon. Draw on that because that's where you're gonna get your best stories from.
Oh, you mean the EU Legends?
Yes, exactly.
Well, now that I think about it, I completely forgot that one of the EU and Legends books was called The Last of the Jedi.
Exactly. Amazing how these things pop up out of nowhere.
It's not amazing. It's disappointing.
Pretty much.
Oh god, just kill me now with this. I'm still rating this like 1 out of 5. It was just absolute trash.
I was courteous with my 2.5, so I'll be a little bit more generous in the fact that I said like music score, special effects, some of the action scenes were good. Just the little things just really let it down.
And that sounds like you're just putting it lightly.
As light as I can, considering how long we've been going on for.
Oh god, just uh, like I said, oh god, I'm just glad it's over.
Over for now. Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Over for now.